Give yourself a pat on the back. We made it all the way to our final game of the day as we're getting ready for Dusty versus Nordavind. Jamada has phased into the fuzz once again. And Foxdrop, talk to me about these rosters.
All right, well, this is a bit of a one-sided matchup, on paper at least. Dusty went winless up until last week, where they pulled it out the bag against Fnatic Rising, of all people, who are lossless going into that game as well. Nordavind on the other side have been trending up, been one of the stronger teams we've seen in NLC. So yeah, it's really an interesting one to break down, because you've got heavy favorites on paper, but then recent form, I don't know, Dusty can really pull out the bag. So it's gonna be a fun game to watch.
I think if they win here, we can safely say Dusty are actually a good team. You know, I'm not going to go bottom and be like, they're the best team ever, but if they win here, it's like, okay, they just had a rough start. They're actually a good team. Yeah. Anyway, to pick some bans, Fresh Lulu, 2 supports getting banned away, although Lulu's kind of a top laner at the moment. See what else we're going to see banned away. I mean, I've said it multiple times. I kind of don't like talking about bans in this meta anymore, because it's somewhat predictable what's going to be banned. There's very few people who target.
It's always now kind of about what the responses are to the bans, and then what the response picks are typically, like for red side to me. I think when it comes to blue side, there's a relatively set sort of list of champions that you take almost over anything. Sometimes it's Rumble, you know, we've seen a lot of Xin Zhao's, typically tends to be the junglers in general. And it's been that way for a really long time now. It's been like a year and a half, like primarily jungle first picks at the very least. So yeah, I agree. Talking about bans, typically pretty boring. It's more about what gets left up. So things like the Viego Rumble picks that can end up being first pick. No Xin ban this time around either. So let's see what Dusty want to go for, because, you know, we've seen M-Test lean on things like the Ezreal as well, which is also another fine first pick. And it seems like with the hover, I don't see no reason why to not lock it in, and that is going to be the case.
All right, that's good stuff. I'm looking at the game versus Fnatic, and I want to see whether Dusty decide like, yo, we won that game, obviously, and that was not a game we expected to win. So let's just keep doing more like that. And they in that game, they played Nidalee, they played Thresh. Those two are already off the board. Nordavind have already taken those ones away. So we are going to see some adaptations here from the side of Dusty. We'll see whether or not that means they can repeat their performance.
All right. Before you talk, Jake, I'm just going to let you know right now, Kai'Sa's going to be R3'd. It's Chris Berg, so just putting that context out there, Dusty should expect that coming. Now go, Jake.
All I was going to say was your face during those picks. That was actually just pure disgust mixed with fear. Like a drop of fear, a seasoning in there. Yeah, I think you're probably right. Might see that Kai'Sa coming in for Chris Berg. It's a specialist pick. It's a pick we always think of on him. Yep. And goddamn does it suit this comp. But the Viego in the set is going to be the answer here. So if Kai'Sa jumps in, she could just get quickly slammed out. Same for the Nocturne.
Yeah, I think that's a really strong response from Dusty in terms of dealing with, you know, these diving compositions. I think Set is really undervalued when it comes to dealing with dive comps. I think typically people think of Set as a diver, actually, because that's kind of how he was modeled when he first released. But he's really damn good at actually peeling out things like the Akali. As soon as she comes out of the Shroud once, I don't think you can cancel the animation as far as I'm aware. As soon as you press R, you're going to suplex her out of the Shroud.
Yeah.
And as for Viego, he loves people walking into him just as much as he likes walking into people. So a lot of short range right now, and as kind of predicted, expected, it's Chris Berg. Ezreal's on the opposite side of the AD carry matchup, so he takes Kai'Sa.
I want to see if this set is support or a solo lane set, because I mean, at this point in the draft, you're very heavy on physical damage for Dusty, if that is going to be a solo lane set. Rumble is still open. Other AP junglers Nidalee's not around. We just saw Gragas be used as an AP jungler. There's also the Morgana's kind of fallen out of favor, to be honest, but you know, and even the Diana, which we saw hovered earlier today, but not actually picked, but is being picked around the world, is being favored quite heavily. I'm not quite sure how it matches alongside like a Viego, to be honest. You've got two champions that are, you know what, in this meta, if it does damage, you pick it. So yeah, sure, why not? I'm sure you can lock that in. But yeah, that might be something though that honestly that Dusty might struggle with as this draft goes on, trying to squeeze in a little bit of magic damage into their comp. And we'll see now. Rumble is open. Does Nordavind want to prioritize that?
I feel like you should just snap it up, because I think you'd benefit a lot from holding onto a support. Fifth pick here, you don't necessarily see the jungler. Adding Rumble to the dive sort of composition here of what Nordavind have is pretty strong. That being said, I worry potentially for Touch's champion pool, and I think they kind of share the same worry potentially going into the Alistar. They don't want it to get pinched too much. Maybe they just don't want to play the Rumble here, which just would be strange to me, because now if you're Dusty, you've just kind of been given a free out, in my opinion. But let's see what they actually want to take on this final 2 picks, because there are quite a few supports off the table, talking about into Alistar in particular. There's not many great matchups. You could maybe take Gragas support if you felt like it. Galio would be an interesting throwback.
Ooh. Yeah, so this is what Warzy played. Warzy played this in the win versus Fnatic, but like, as you're probably about to mention, like, where does it squeeze in here? Is this going to be, is this going to be a bot side, a blue Galio? As far as like Sawyer goes for his jungle pick, I mean, we've highlighted Rumble. He hasn't played Rumble yet. Rumble doesn't get banned versus Dusty either. I'm not sure it's really in his jump pool. So yeah, of course, like, you just chuck Viego in the jungle, and then you can just go for a mage in the mid lane. That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I forgot about Viego jungle, but it just strikes me more as when it's in the jungle, it tends to not like get going so often. It feels like in competitive, it just kind of struggles a tad more than in the solo lanes. And in general, I think Viego getting more influx of a high influx of gold from the solo lanes just kind of makes him a much stronger champion. But hey, it looks like we're gonna get Galio on the bottom side, Viego jungle with this Zoe in the mid lane. I think Zoe potentially is going to struggle. I think, honestly, Dusty's composition in general is really good into what Nordavind have. I think there's a lot of peeling tools, a lot of self-peel, as well as sort of helping out each other. But Zoe kind of feels a little bit out of place, and in that particular thing, albeit between Zoe and Ezreal, there's a lot of poke. So if Nordavind take their time on the engages, they can certainly struggle.
To me, this is kind of what you were hitting on, that kind of reverse dive, where they jump in, Set throws them out, and then Galio comes in as well, and you kind of got that double dive. But Set can only throw one person out, and if everybody else bails in after as well, how is that team fight going to go? I do like what Nordavind have got, but I also think Dusty have drafted some brilliant picks to be able to deal with that. I think this is going to be an explosive game. I think this might be a bloodbath. Although I do worry that Nordavind do have a very snowballing comp. If that Akali gets going, if that Kai'Sa gets going, this is going to be a really hard one. Anyway, I think it's time for us to throw it over to our casters. They have more chemistry than a school science room. Gulborg and Viperin.
He's going to be...
Right, you listen here, Summoner. We've been working together for years, and he's out here. I mean, he almost called me Viperio, which is a UK tier 2 org that is based in the same city that I'm in, and I love him to pieces. So I'll take it, but we'll have words after. It's Viperin and Gulborg back at it again. Final game of the day, Dusty versus Nordavind. Gulborg, are you excited for the compositions that we've got built here?
I love the stylistic of Nordavind's composition. This is everything I wanted this meta, is what I'm getting out from Nordavind. Now, I like the response picks to come through from Dusty as well. I think they have some tools to play around that, but we talk a lot about ease of execution. And, I think Nordavind is just going to be that much easier. Yes, Jake said himself just before he threw to a break, there is a lot of snowball potential, and I think if Nordavind is willing to press the trigger around objectives, this game might become really hard for Dusty to play. So it's about stabilizing as well.
I do like the fact that Nordavind so clearly from the get-go were like, this is our game plan. Dusty, have fun responding. And Dusty did draft a couple of champions, the Set and the Galio especially. I'm looking at those and going, these are champs that love being dove onto by multiple members. They're going to have such a fun time, and Ezreal and Zoe can kind of move backwards a little bit as well. But are you... Okay, let's have a look at what's going to happen in the early game. Where should we be seeing action, do you think?
I don't actually think from the side of Nordavind you'll have to look for too much. Sharp is probably just going to be full clearing on the Nocturne until he finally gets past level 6. And the funny thing about Sharp onto Nocturne in the jungle is that he started playing this jungler before it became meta around earlier spring, or last year rather. I can't actually remember fully, but I remember he was one of the few that said, I think Nocturne is a hidden OP champion. And that was just 2 weeks before the champion just popped off in pro play. So a bit of a connoisseur on this Nocturne as well. So I think level 6 from that guy definitely want to be what we want to see. Most of Nordavind is going to start scaling up from that point if they can get the snowball going. And onto the side of Dusty, I think they have potential to look for some ganks to kind of engage with the CC you get in lanes. There's CC up towards the top side, mid lane, and towards the bot side. So if you get the early vision down on towards Sharp when he's busy full clearing, and you can capitalize with a man advantage onto a gank, I think that's a decent way for you to get into this game.
I'm interested to see a couple of the picks for Nordavind go off if they can, because as you mentioned, Sharp, this is the first time we're seeing him on an AD jungler at the moment, as we're seeing a little bit of an exchange, but the Galio gets headbutted right on out from the mini-map. But also Touch, touchless champ pool, a pun not intended, and he's only played Leona so far this split. Fun fact. So the fact that it was banned away and he's been forced onto the Alistar, similar champion, but we'll have to see if he's as comfortable on it as he is on the Solari.
Yeah, I mean, he did play this champion beforehand as well. And I mean, it's not like it's a support pool that if you're one trick on Leona, you can't play Alistar or Nautilus or all the other engaged champions that you just get. It's very much the same stylistic, really. So nothing to worry about there. Now, with this early priority, we can see that Savio and Baloo has been moving up towards this mid lane here. I'm wondering if they're actually setting up a little early dive here.
Yeah, Wolsey's pushed up the wave. It's a big wave as well. Baloo
he just
moving forward. He's already W'd though. Can't land the knock, and this is a disastrous dive at the moment. No one's going to die, but Dusty committing so much time, and Baloo a little bit too early. And the top side Zombie needs to be careful. Going down to Kerberos as well, but not the start that you'll have wanted to see if you're a Dusty fan.
I mean, I think you had some good ideas, perhaps to force a flash there as well, but and good roam timing as well. You can see M-Test even went for a cheater recall, meanwhile, to pick up an early tier. Now, bot gang is coming through as well, so they're keeping up the pressure. Look for the TPs.
And they do, getting the taunts down. I'm watching for TPs that just aren't any so far. Chrisberg burning so low. Fuzz blood goes to Sawyer on the Viego. They turn a bad play mid to a great play bot.
Yeah, that was kind of awkward. Kerberos did TP, but in that team, when that fight broke out, he TP'd on towards the top side where there was a big minion wave pushing into him. So he couldn't actually join that fight. So Nordavind, they're too busy pushing in the mid wave, or bot wave rather, to actually see the rest of the members of Dusty moving down after that dive, and they just got caught overextended, really. Nice play from Dusty, who made good use of pressure in the early game. Bot lane pressure, used it to facilitate mid. Yeah, they don't get the they don't get the gank because they botch it a bit, but they use that pressure again to go down immediately and punish Chrisberg and Touch, who's overextended.
And we talked about the ability for Nordavind to snowball in this game if they can get ahead. Picking up a nice early lead for Dusty will be really helpful in trying to alleviate the opportunity of that. Yeah, First Blood's not going to stop it entirely if we see positive proactive plays from Nordavind, but it's a nice start for the team that's coming into this game off the back of a win for the first time this split.
Yeah, it really is. Like, Dusty, let's be honest, they had a horrible start to this play. They really did not seem like a team that played nice together. But in an interview with M-Test, he still said that as a team, they were quite cocky. They know that they're good, but it just seems like every day on the game, they've struggled to translate their scrim results into the official games. But this time around, good start from them, and you can see they are up there. They are playing around with tools such as depression right now. Once again, bot lane is pushed in. As soon as bot lane is pushed in, how do we use this downtime while we're waiting for the next wave? Right, let's get some pressure. Let's clear the vision into the river, and now let's just start up the Drake. They're very proactive, Dusty, here, which is what they need to be, so they are not falling behind into Nordavind's combo, which we already talked about can be quite snowbally.
Yeah, it can be quite potent in the early stages. A Mountain Dragon will help with that as well, make it a little bit more difficult for all of these assassins to get involved. Zombie gets beaten to level 6, has to be very careful. Does have the big shield available, but it's Sharp who's going to be the first responder on the scene. Zombie burning low. Is the regen enough to keep him alive? I don't think it is. And there he falls. Kerberos picking up the solo kill. First kill for the team as well.
Yeah, I like the timing as well. Waiting out for the Haymaker to come through before he put that Ignite down, so no shielding was going to get value. Nicely done by Kerberos, finding his team a solo kill where they were not necessarily far behind, but where they were losing grasp of the early game.
Evening up in kills, Gold dead even now as well, and it's good that Dusty got that first blood because otherwise they'd have started slipping behind. But it's very early days. Rift Herald hasn't even found its way onto the map yet, so no one's really too worried about losing out on a single kill, but Ericsson in the mid side up against Warzy. We haven't talked about this lane very much. It's been quiet, except for that botched dive.
Really has. Ericsson looking to up that though.
Ooh, gonna dive away, goes to sleep. Can Warzy get the snipe? Yes, he can, but Ericsson's alive. The pot rolling keeps him standing and almost cursed it, but both mid laners still standing.
Yeah, that's the thing. Ericsson does have TP, so he can't get back into this one, but that was the damage. It was only an amplifying tome to up his AP. And that's what he did towards his HP bar. In a few moments, this Akali is only going to get scary. Ericsson, quite flexible as a mid laner. We used to know him for the control mages, but Silas and Akali has fallen into his champion pool, and we can kind of see why here as well. A little skirmish, but we don't get too much out of it. Ignite comes through from Wolsey though in the early game there. He had that unsealed spell books and he kind of go for the play. And then when the bubble hits, gets kind of scary. Gets out alive though. And when we kind of take stock after that exchange, Wolsey did utilize his real flash. So Ericsson does have a summoner spell advantage now in this mid lane.
Just looking at the Rift Herald spawning up, members moving into the jungle from both sides. Does either team have a big advantage in a macro sense playing around this objective?
I mean, it kind of depends on who's there moving up there. You can see right now Dusty's moving with both the bot laners down towards the bot lane, funnily enough. But Nordavind decided to move touch up.
Oh, the ultimate paranoia has been used, jumping onto Viego, but he's going to jump right on out. Second dive over the wall as well. So everyone from Dusty will escape. But Nordavind, happy to have burnt those resources, move towards the Rift Herald. They should have the advantage of the M-Test and Baloo. Just manage to make Chrisberg back away from the tower so they can pick up some gold themselves.
Yeah, I don't really mind this from Dusty. Yeah, you give over the Rift Herald, but you're starving Chrisberg away from resources. M-Test is level 6. Chrisberg's still level 5, and they're just going to pick up some plating gold here. They're just going to be picking up the wave. Potentially, they can shove in this now, get the last plate, and then go for a reset, where they essentially just got to kill off that exchange. And BTXL, they're not promised much more outside of their Rift Herald before they actually come to fruition with a plate. But there we go. 2 plates over to M-Test. Cannon wave pushed in. Now probably just going to be looking for a reset.
Well, the question here is, M-Test gained that value, he gains that gold, and that's an initial immediate response. Now it's on Nordavind, especially on Sharp, to get that gold returned and more by dropping this Rift Herald somewhere useful. Is there a lane that you'd really like to see this investment placed in?
I think it's easy to go for the top side, just because I think there's the potential for you to finish up the entire turret. If you move, once again, we have said this a lot today, but getting mid lane priority, moving together with a jungler, going for a dive, I think that's specifically the best thing to go for. And I think top lane is easier to execute on. Bot lane, a bit too much disengaged to come through with the Galio taunt, with the M-Test having exhaust being so slippery as an Ezreal, can be kind of tough to execute on.
It's almost like the fundamentals of the League of Legends beta game are the same each game. Crazy that, right?
It does seem like that, wouldn't it? But yeah, this meta right now is just very much about the top side of the map. AD carries has kind of been forced into a position where they're just there. They're just farming up for the first 2 items. As soon as that is done, yeah, they're going to be a threat into the mid game. But up until that point, the early game driving factors are just the junglers and the solo lanes in this meta.
I mean, that can be very entertaining if we've got the right champions in it. As much as I hate Akali, is entertaining to watch until 3 items, and then it's aggressively unentertaining for the opposing team. But it's certainly nice. We're going to have Paranoid jumping in onto the mid lane. Zoe going to be the one targeted, but Sharp doesn't have the damage, just half health, and Warzy will be absolutely fine to skip away. And things have slowed down quite significantly here. We've got a dragon on the menu now. It's the Ocean, which means we're going to have a more active soul in this game. Both teams seem like they might want to fight around it. Touches in the mid lane as well. They're not going to be able to get the engage.
But that's quite a big tool there. Nocturne ultimate down. That's a fairly long cooldown. So now you're in a position where you won't have that for the second Drake. You do have Rift Herald if you just want to use that for pressure, but obviously that's not going to be the use you're looking for in an ideal world. And Dusty, 4 members, has taken control over the river. You can see them clearing out the vision around the mid lane, whereas Nordavind right now, they have control over the bot side. So both teams have an entrance to this Drake, but it's only coming from one flank. And TP's off for both top laners if you want to engage this fight.
One is getting towards this dragon. There is TPs, as you said, so keep your eyes peeled on the minimap or on those wards around this area. But the dragon's already gone. Don't worry about any of that. There's not going to be a fight. Sharp secures it. 1 dragon apiece as the Inferno blazes for the first time this evening across Summoner's Rift.
Yeah, this is definitely in a composition where both teams are going to love them. We talked about poke compositions earlier, how they love the little extra explosion with the Infernal. And obviously, I mean, even in teamfight scenarios, never going to mind the extra damage. It's always essential.
With the poke composition, as you mentioned, you want to get a little bit extra damage, a little bit more bang for your buck. And it's certainly going to be a possibility with champions like Zoe and Ezreal, but Dusty have a long way to go until they can get there, but we're 12 minutes in, a couple of minutes to get some plates, but things are dead even right now, as everyone seems to be looking towards this top side. Zombie might need to be careful, but does have Sawyer in support.
Yeah, and Ultimate is ready for him here if he wants to use it.
Be in trouble, gets a decent shield, but will go down. Sawyer now stepping forward, but can't find any return damage, and it's just going to be as simple as that. A kill over to Nordavind, and they're dropping Rift Herald as well.
And what do you know? Push in mid lane, move up with your jungler in mid lane to the top side, drop Herald top. I mean, yeah, it is just this meta in a nutshell, isn't it?
You make it look so easy, it's effortless. You're just like, this is what is exactly going to happen next, and you can just see the future, just like that. But it's a good play. It's good fundamental League of Legends, and Nordavind have grabbed themselves the smallest of gold leads.
They have, and that's exactly what they need to, but the problem is, not rather problem, but the good thing for Dusty is you gotta compliment them for their way of stalling down the early game as well. They're keeping this game even. They're making sure it's gonna stay competitive, because as Nordavind, you wanted to be able to snowball. You wanted to be able to hit the mythic item power spike before your opponent, so you could just run them down with your R-keys, but Dusty, once again, been doing a really good job at stopping them from this, and specifically in the bot side as well. It goes all the way back to the Herald play. Yes, Nordavind got something out of that Herald towards the top side, but Dusty got just as much out of that play towards the bottom with the plating they picked up for MTest alone.
So I'm going to want to ask you this. If Nordavind are looking to snowball, and we can see exactly how they'd be able to do that, how they would be able to take over the game, is there a point where Dusty's comp just comes online to an extent that Nordavind would really struggle to take it in an even game state?
I'm not... I guess we're looking for 3 items then specifically, and the reason why I say that is because we're looking towards the composition of Nordavind right now. They have 3 ADs that can dive onto the backline, and for that point, I think MTest with Moromana, Divine Sundra, and Frozen Heart is going to have a lot of effectiveness there. But I don't think there's any comp right now where you got to say, all right, you're just getting completely outscaled, because I think at any point in the game, from now on moving forward, they're still going to have tools as to ways where they can find themselves a lead or find themselves ways to play these team fights. But it's going to be very execution based.
I like that. I like where games are based on the skill of the players individually on the day, in the match, as opposed to when they're in pick and bans, the coaches don't get wins, the players on the Rift. Well, no, the coaches do get wins occasionally, but this time around, it looks like it's going to be all on execution, because Nordavind haven't yet been able to find that snowball. Yes, they've got a 1,000 gold lead at the moment. They're moving towards the second Rift Herald as well, but past that, things have been pretty even. And credit to Dusty again. We said this a little bit earlier about Godsent, but this team's 1-5, and right now they're playing the game pretty well.
I mean, they really are. Nordavind, though, with this newfound pressure they have found, are using the top side to fight. But then again, as soon as Nordavind is looking topside, Dusty is just like, let's expose Chrisberg down towards the bot side. Let's make sure to starve this guy outside of resources. And remember, this AD carry for Nordavind has been the star player for a long time. When people think Chrisberg, they think Kaiser, and for good reason. But this time around, MTest is making it look like it's not even Chrisberg piloting it, just because he's been able to starve it out. And that's not even necessarily Chrisberg's fault. That's just due to the nature of how this game has been played out.
It's been a quiet one for him. He hasn't really been able to do very much on the Kaiser, but has been farming up, and we said this was kind of how the bot lane played out in the current meta. We've got Dragon on the menu in 40 seconds time, the first of the Infernal Drakes, and both of these teams will probably want to fight over this one, won't they?
I mean, yeah, they definitely both would love to do that. We can take a look at stock of the items as well before we hit this. You can see all mythics basically has come through, except from Zombie up towards that top side of the map and the supports. But outside of that, this is going to be very even. And then we can talk execution based again, Viperoon, because obviously from the side of Dusty, if you can poke them down before the fight starts, you can get picks with Story and Eshril from afar. That's your win condition. Then you have to peel together with Balu on the Galio. Needs to be a bit careful here, though. He is spotted out on a ward.
Couldn't decide whether he wanted to run away from Sharp or attempt an engage on him. In the end, does kind of neither, but it's okay because Sharp wasn't interested in getting involved. Dragon's been started up by Dusty, but Nordavind are moving towards it, and the team from Iceland are going moving south down the river. Don't want to be getting into a full-fledged fight, it would appear, at this very second. Dragon is going low. Look at Ericsson on the side. They're looking for a flag but can't find one that he feels safe taking, and the Dragon will reset. It's still pretty low as Dusty keep it running on just over 5,000 health. You can see on the side, Drowsiness comes through. The Rift Tower's been dropped mid by Sharp. They're trying to get a little bit of pressure behind them as Nordavind maraud forward. Now the river has gone down. Paranoia is used. Where's Sharp jumping in? They dive into the backline. So much damage coming through. Warzy's already gone, and the backline's being melted through. This is exactly what the Nordavind team comp wants to do. Sawyer is cut down. MTES manages to jump away, but it's just not enough. Ericsson with the triple kill secures the big team fight win, and the Dragon will go with it.
Yeah, as soon as the fight broke out, there's nothing more to do. That is not your win condition as Dusty. You need to be able to poke them down before they arrive onto the objective. When they're just posturing like that 5-on-5 without getting poked down, it's just going to be really easy for Nordavind to play with their composition. And we talked about it. It's easy to execute. I wonder if we're going to get the bubble onto Chrisberg in this. No, we're not. We're just going to get the dog pile. And they're coming in from multiple flanks. And I love to see this from compositions where it's all about the dive. It's easy, well, quote unquote, easy for Dusty to kite back if you're coming from one flank. But if you're coming from multiple, then it just becomes even harder for them to play their team composition. I would have liked to see them go for a true shot barrage as soon as that bubble hit Chrisberg, or more to try and poke someone out of the fight so they could get a man advantage. But it just seemed like they weren't on the same page. And inevitably, they tried to play it as a team fight composition, which is, well, you saw it. It didn't really work out, did it?
No, not at all. I mean, Baloo going down before the heroic entrance could go off fully is unfortunate, and then we're going to see a fight coming through. Baloo once again at the epicenter of it was MTES in the backside trying to get the poke down onto Kerberos. He's not going to be able to dive away just yet. You can see members coming up. It's going to be a 1-for-1 trade in the end, though, as Baloo falls, and what looked like a cut and dry easy pick turns into an exchange, and in the bot side it could get even worse. The zombie going to take a lot of damage from Ericsson, who's just going to cut him down. No shield available. And oh, Carly, you've reached that stage, haven't you?
Blink, and you missed it. Warzy in the mid lane needs to be careful. Might be forced to flash.
Very nice flash coming through from the Zoe as the mid lane tower will crumble. Trying to get a little bit of poke on the backside. Won't be able to find anyone though. But goodness me, Nordavind turning on the start in those last two plays.
Yeah, they really have. They're definitely upping the tempo, and we talked about it. As soon as they snowball, as soon as they're looking for these aggressive plays, it's just going to be really hard for Dusty to answer. They needed to keep the game even, and they did that just like 5 minutes ago. Now, 5 minutes later, Nordavind almost 5k up. This is going really well for the Norwegian side here.
It's looking really, really nice from them. It was a slow start. Dusty kept things reserved pretty well for the first 14-15 minutes of the game. But Nordavind, they know when their composition comes online, they know what they could do with it. And yes, they hadn't snowballed, but they found those small incremental leads. Now Touch might be looking for an engagement, takes a decent amount of poke from MTES, but will go for it anyway. And look at the Alistair just getting chunked down by Ezreal. Yes, they're down, but they're not quite out and in the sideline. Zoe in a lot of trouble, shot with Paranoia jumping on through. Goes golden to stay alive for a second longer, but is still in full retreat. Dives back into the fight because that's how Zoe Ultimate works. As Warzy's cut down, members are so easily able to access the backline, and Dusty is melted through. Chrisberg will help complete the quadra kill coming through from the Wukong. And honestly, Nordavind, strength to strength, fight after fight, they're pulling it off, and they move towards the Baron buff.
And just like that, you said it yourself, they might just start off the Baron. Death timers are still fairly low, 17 seconds onto Warzy, but I think they should be able to bring this one down before any member of Dusty is going to be able to join the fight. And wow, we talked about Nordavind's composition, how easy it is for them to dogpile, but I did not expect them to go onto you so deep in the enemy territory.
And let's just look at this kill. It's the kill in bot side. Just that's some damage on the Akali, but this is the pick on the Zoe.
Yeah, it really is. And remember earlier from the skirmish, Zoe was forced to flash, so there's nothing she can do here to avoid the tether. Kerberos does a good job of getting his clone in there and then just staying alive for so long. He gets slept, but the members of Dusty cannot get onto him. And after those kills with the Triumph, he's just back to full HP.
It's the quadra kill triumph, where he's just like, I thought Kerberos had died in that initial exchange, but he hadn't. And then he gets a quadra kill because he's able to heal half his health bar with one of his runes. But it's Baloo and Zombie.
4 members are up here. TP's up, Paranoia's up as well, so if they go on him, they could just die afterwards, and I think that's what they know. So they're just backing off. If they went on him, he'd go into his clone, TP would come through, Paranoia would be off, and I think they would just be absolutely dusted.
Well, that's a gold grafter, right? that we've got going right now, and it was even for a long time. It must be said, Dusty played exceptionally well to hold out, but Nordavind, they started their snowball a little bit later than we expected, but goodness me, is it rolling now.
Yeah, and we kind of talked about it. One item is essentially what you need on a lot of these champions right now, which is just this meta in general.
Just looking towards this bot side, Kerberos pushing forward, doesn't have millions of support in the wings, but does have Sharp with that paranoia available, as you mentioned before. And you can see Dusty, they feel like they have man advantages, but they're also super passive. They don't want to engage in case the Nocturne dives on top of them. They don't have vision of everyone else, and this gives Chrisberg plenty of time to go into this mid lane. The teamfight is kicking off in the jungle, but Baloo can't find an exchange, so Nordavind are just given free reign to walk away.
Yeah, and meanwhile they're using those resources to the middle. Kerberos is just going to be smashing down the bot lane towards, funnily towards the bot lane. And it's just the fact that they're navigating the turret taking so nicely here on the side of Nordavind. This is just 1-3-1. You put pressure in the mid, you wait for the pressure to apply. Dusty needs to make a response. As soon as they respond, you go full play towards the side lane instead. And this Baron buff is just really paying off for Nordavind.
Oh, Ericsson's trying to do the damage again. The shield has been used and Zombie gets cut down. We've seen it before, so it's a little bit less shocking, but goodness me, Ericsson is putting on a clinic on the Akali in that top side. Members of Dusty all turning up together and might have called him out in the end. And you can see Soy getting the stun. There's a decent amount of damage coming through. Goes Golden to dodge out M-Test's ultimate, but it doesn't matter. He gets the shutdown anyway.
Yeah, big shutdown going over to the side of M-Test here. Problem is, how well is that shutdown actually going to be doing for him? Because right now they're just pushing in the middle, they're pushing in the bottom, and right now they're onto the inhibitors. They're the man. Actually, they're quite even right now, and it looks like Barley is going onto him.
Can't find anything. There's a spell shield on Sharp, and Kerberos stepped away, but he's looking to step back into the fight as the paranoia is blown. The heroic entrance will land this time around, but it only gets the knock up on Tawana's touch in the backline, trying to get some damage down. Baloo cut down almost by Kerberos, as Sharp is also looking to cleave around. It's a double kill already for Wukong, who's looking to get onto Zombie as well. Touch just keeping Zoe at bay as Chrisberg runs on through, helps with the triple, and Kerberos being given the kills in the team fight once again, earning them himself, and he might have just earned his team a win. They move on to the first Nexus Tower. Teleport coming through onto the cannon, and Warzy doing his best to dissuade the Nordavind lineup, but it's 5 versus 1, and he will not escape. Ericsson chasing him out of the base as they take his Nexus. The crystal explodes, and Nordavind take a decisive victory.
Yeah, you know what? I feel like that game was even until it really was not even longer. Wow, what a monster pop-up performance from Kerberos as well. And we even talked about that from the early game, where bot lane from Dusty got a little bit of a lead, and then Kerberos found a solo kill for himself to even out the gold. And from that point onwards, it just seemed like the pressure towards the top side, which was what netted them an advantage every time. When the Herald play came in, they used it towards the top side from Kerberos as well, find another play. So this team we used to categorize as let's play for Chrisberg, this time around turned into let's play for Kerberos, and did extremely well with that.
I mean, Kerberos earned so much himself in those later team fights. You said in that topside team fight where they caught onto Zoe, he looked so good and was able to survive way longer than any Wukong really had any right to. But that's all from the games today, but we're going to be throwing over to... Oh, I get to do a throw over. We're getting to throw over to our really handsome panel, and Hiprain, take it away.